This episode of EduTechGuys is sponsored by the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. It's a global nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing student engagement in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, and computer science by engaging students in hands-on curriculum-based robotics programs. Through comprehensive initiatives encompassing competitions, education, and workforce readiness, the Foundation empowers educators to inspire and equip students for success. The REC Foundation strives to create a future where every student designs and innovates as part of a team, overcomes failure, perseveres, and emerges confident in their ability to meet global challenges. Through sustainable, affordable, and accessible robotics programs, the REC Foundation is inspiring students one robot at a time. For more information, visit recf.org.
Beep, bop, boop, beep. Hey, David, do you like robots?
I do like robots. I have one that cleans my floor.
Hey, well, they have them in competitions. All that and much more up next on the EduTech Guys.
You're listening to the EduTech Guys. EduTechGuys.com. Hello and welcome to the EduTech Guys. I'm David Henderson.
Hey, I'm Jeff Matlock.
Yeah, hey, welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in, turning on, downloading, grabbing the digits.
Man, all of them. Hey, check us out on the web, www.edutechguys.com. It's got all of our good stuff. It's our link tree with every link to all the social medias, all the episodes, our Amazon store, our book, some recipes,
all the
random
branches.
links to, funny memes, you name it. It's all right there at the edutechguys.com. Yeah, we're out there. Hey, listen.
Whoa, we're out there, all right.
That's true. Yeah, I've been kicked in. Hey, falls down a well, eyes go cross. Get kicked in the head, by a mule, eyes go straight. That's me right there.
There you go.
That's weekly. That's weekly right. For me. A mule kick to the head.
Mule kick to the head. That's why we are the way you are.
Yikes! Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Wait, what was it that our good friend said? We have faces for radio.
That's right. We are eye candy. Radio.
That's it. That's
right.
Hey, listen, we got a great show today. We're going to talk with Dan Mantz. He's the CEO of the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. Yeah, those are the folks that make VEX happen, kind of. They're a big part of all that. That's just a small part of what ROC does. The Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. We'll refer to them as ROC. So if you hear us say ROC, we're not talking about a sediment. We're talking about that. The actual foundation. They should use that.
They should. They probably can't, but they should.
We should look into that for them. Hey, listen,
we will.
It's only $8 million.
I was going to say, hey, look, hey, the EduTech Guys will cover the copyright licensing.
No, we won't.
No, we won't.
Find me out on a street corner with one of those arrows that says Rock Foundation, and I'm spinning it, just trying to make some extra cash to pay
out
for
there
that.
With a cup. I want to rock.
I want to rock. Help us rock.
We need a GoFundMe to raise money for the
That would be a great theme song, though.
Oh my gosh!
I bet they could play it at their conferences, though. Especially their big competitions. That'd be kind of neat. But going to talk robotics because that's everyone's stuck on AI. But luckily the ROC Foundation and VEX and all of those groups and that industry realize the importance of manufacturing robotics and making sure our kids all have their finger into that thumb in the pie kind of thing. That they know what's going on. It's going to be a great interview. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, and not only that, we also get into talking about drones, which is very cool.
I forget, drones. I still, if flying a drone's like playing Xbox, I'm going to wreck a lot of drones.
You are going to wreck a lot of drones.
Because, my thumbs are just lucky to go the A from Fonzie. That's just, and just then my left eye twitched a bit. Because
I saw that.
It's a lot of work for me to do. It's just put my thumb up.
We're going to get Jeff to the optometrist, and we'll be right back with the interview after this. This episode of EduTech Guys is sponsored by the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. It's a global nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing student engagement in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, and computer science by engaging students in hands-on curriculum-based robotics programs. Through comprehensive initiatives encompassing competitions, education, and workforce readiness, the Foundation empowers educators to inspire and equip students for success. The REC Foundation strives to create a future where every student designs and innovates as part of a team, overcomes failure, perseveres, and emerges confident in their ability to meet global challenges. Through sustainable, affordable, and accessible robotics programs, the REC Foundation is inspiring students one robot at a time. For more information, visit recf.org.
Hey, welcome back to the EduTech Guys. We're really excited to have our next guest on the show. We're going to let him introduce himself and tell us who he is and what he does and all that kind of good stuff. So here we go.
Well, hello. My name is Dan Mantz. I am the CEO of the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. We're going to just say RECF for the rest of this recording. But basically, we are a large not-for-profit whose mission is to provide educators with competition, education, and workforce programs to increase student engagement in STEM and computer science. And we do this through our hands-on programs. Includes robotics. We're best known for running the VEX robotics competition, but we've expanded into a lot of other areas. So we have drones programs, workforce development programs, industry certifications, for example. Basically, we see a future where students need to start participating in these STEM activities, hands-on activities, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and prepare them for the tech workforce of the future.
Cool.
And I think I think you hit on one of the key factors of any student learning, or really any learning at all, and that's being open to the failure side of things. A lot of times, failure is seen as this just massive negative cloud that hangs over the students. And a lot of times they're, students are punished for failure, where, you guys are actually, I don't want to necessarily say you're encouraging failure, but you're definitely encouraging learning through that failure.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, we actually updated our vision a few years ago to specifically say that our program, the students are going to overcome failure. I mean, the part that we emphasize in our program is the engineering design process. It's core to who the REC Foundation is. And as part of the engineering design process, you're going to make mistakes. We just completed the 2024 VEX Robotics World Championship, and I always give the opening remarks. And I always ask the students, how many are here with the same robot design you started with? And everybody laughs, because as part of the engineering design process, you build a robot, you design a robot, you're programming it, and then you go to your first event and it doesn't work as you expected. And that is, in some terminology, failure, but it's really the learning process. And we encourage our students to overcome those failures and persevere. And I think it's core to who the REC Foundation is. And that skill, whether you stay in robotics or pursue a STEM career, that skill is going to help you no matter what you do in your career, and learning from your mistakes and persevering.
And we talk about this a lot. We've been talking about it for a long time, but the fail forward attitude, the fail forward concept, we hear it a lot, but we have to remind ourselves, we have to re-explain that to every generation, because it's not just a common pickup. It's just something you don't learn. But fail forward has been in our vernacular, like you said, for 40 years earlier, and for us, 30 plus 40 years. Yeah, that's one of those things.
It's not, and I agree with you, and it's not just in part of our education programs. I've been running the REC Foundation for 7 years now, and I actually encourage my staff to make mistakes. I collectively probably make more mistakes than our 100 employees do combined, but it's by trying things, looking at different ways to solve the problem, looking at different ways to reach students and educators. Sometimes it doesn't work. And then you learn from that and you try again. But sitting there being afraid to try something new because you might make a mistake, you'll never grow that way. You'll be stagnant. So we don't just reflect that in our vision for our students and our educators. Even within the REC Foundation, we want to try new things, and sometimes they don't work. And we learn from those and move on.
Yeah. So I'm going to back up a little bit, because this is something our listeners really like to hear. So how did you get involved in robotics? And what were your first experiences, and how did they shape you and your future goals and everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think my story is a little unique for this the not-for-profit robotics world. So my background is actually in industrial robotics. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. I went to engineering school in Michigan, Flint, Michigan. It was GMI. It's now Kettering University. And I started my career at General Motors EDS division. And I was about 2 years into my career after I graduated from college. And I had a chance to go to Fanuc Robotics as a controls engineer. And I ended up spending 20 years there. And my first 6 years, I traveled the world doing control systems, and I loved it. And then ultimately, I started working on robot developments. And my last 7 years at Fanuc, I was director of product development. And so we were developing incredible technologies. I mean, we were working on AI and vision systems and machine learning, in the late 90s. And these are such common terminologies now, but some of these technologies, started being developed, 2-3 decades ago. Now they look a lot different today because technology's evolved. But I spent 20 years at Fanuc as a robotics engineer, and I had experiences with software, mechanical, and electrical. But I wanted to do something different, and I had an opportunity to move to Texas to run a company called Rack Solutions. And it was decidedly low tech. It's a sheet metal company that makes products for the IT industry, specifically data centers. So a lot of stamping machines and brake machines, which bend metal. So, we were sales and marketing and design engineering and manufacturing, but it's decidedly low tech. During that window, I started coaching robotics. I started coaching my daughters on their robotics teams. And I had some strong opinions on the experiences that they were getting in competitive robotics. And my friend was president of Vex Robotics at the time. And I shared with him my concerns. And he's like, would you be interested in joining the board? So I joined the board of the REC Foundation, which runs the Vex Robotics competition. And I did a pretty deep analysis of what I thought they were doing well and areas that they could improve. And about 8 months into my board term, they asked if I would take over as CEO. And I actually liked the gig I was doing. I liked running Rack Solutions. But when I spoke with my family, they're like, well, you have a chance to really impact the next generation of students. And you coming from a robotics background, you have a unique perspective. So in a sense, I've gone full circle from being a robotics engineer to now leading a program that does robotics education and competitions. And one just more quick thing on my story is when I joined the REC Foundation, I didn't want it to just be about mobile robotics competitions. I felt that there were a lot of students that didn't engage in mobile robotics for many different reasons, whether it was time or finances or aptitude, but we still needed to provide opportunities for those students. So when I joined the REC Foundation, one of my stated objectives was to grow the program, and since then we've launched into drones programs, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit more detail, but that's a way to engage students that might not have traditionally done robotics. And then I felt there was a need for programs that mimicked what I saw on the factory floor at Fanuc. And so we came up with the factory automation competition, which is much different than a mobile robotics competition, but it basically looks like robotics in a fulfillment center. Think of an Amazon or a Walmart. And again, we're teaching students different skills that really, really are important for the workforce.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. So a couple of things that kind of sit with me immediately is I love the fact that your daughters were interested in robotics and you jumped straight into, coach them, work with them, help them, because that's one of the, still, even today, is still one of the biggest leaps is to get more girls, especially, school-age girls interested in science and tech and engineering and math and robotics, all that stuff that they can get their hands on, get their hands dirty, building stuff, making it work. And so, for you to come in from that side of it, with your daughters, and then by extension, taking on this role where you're impacting students from all over the world, in robotics, and as you have said, grown into drones and manufacturing robotics, and it's I don't know. To me, that's very telling of your journey, but I think it's also very important for the conversation overall that this started with you and your girls.
Yeah, I was going to say, the fact that you sat down with your family and they said, Dad, no, you need to do this. You're going to impact so many more people. That's got to be a great. I raised two girls myself, and so knowing that our kids, girls or boys, when they tell you that you need to do this, and they look at you as that leader in that, that's really awesome. So,
wait,
go ahead.
I was going to say, did you want to?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because talking about a lot to unpack. It's interesting because my son was in robotics in Michigan, and he had a great experience. And when we moved to Texas, my middle daughter joined the robotics team, and she had a horrible experience, to be honest with you.
Wow.
She's exceptionally bright in math and science, and she was joining the team to help work on the robot. But she's also very artistic, so she kind of got pushed into doing signage and stuff like that. And even like when they were doing CNC machine training, she was in the last group and they didn't have time for her and the other girls. So she actually left robotics after 1 year. Wow. So when my youngest daughter had been on a VEX team, and when she decided she was going to join the high school team, I wanted to make sure that my youngest daughter did not have that same experience. And that's when I raised my hand to be a coach, right? And at the REC Foundation, we recognize that we need equal representation of girls in our program. In 2016, we launched the Girl Powered Initiative with VEX Robotics. And the goal was to have equal representation of girls in the VEX Robotics programs. And at that point, 26% of our students were girls. And now in our elementary and middle school programs, it's almost 50-50. We're still lagging a little bit behind in high school. It tends to be in the very high 30s or low 40s. But overall, by engaging these girls in elementary, we think long term we'll get that 50-50 representation. And it's been such an impactful program that we're now presented by Google. So Google has invested a significant amount of funding to grow the Girl Powered Initiative. And we've had a couple 100,000 girls participate in our girl-powered workshops and seminars and stuff like that. So, it's a great initiative. Other companies, Texas Instruments, BASF, they've all been part of it. But it really comes down to making sure that girls have the same opportunities in our program as boys. And girl-powered initiative doesn't mean it's all girl teams or all girl programs. We're really trying to reflect the workforce, and you can be a part of the Girl Powered Initiative as long as half of your team is girls, right? And there's been different successes. If you go to the state of Indiana, their statewide numbers are even better than we've achieved nationally with the Girl Powered Initiative. But I pick on my daughter sometimes, and I say this all started because I wanted to make sure that you had a better experience in robotics than your older sister did.
Yeah. Look what you did.
That's right.
So along that line, so what do you think, talking about that, what do you think the best way to get students excited about it? Like what age, you've been doing this now for some time, and that's what the Rec Foundation is about. It's not just about it's not about competition all the time. It's about the education and everything. So when do you think is a good time to start this? Kindergarten, pre-K, first grade, third grade? What age and what's the trick? Is it bringing in just some basic robots, or is it the coding part of it? Is that the fun part of the write it and see it work for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I first joined the REC Foundation, a lot of the emphasis were on the high school programs, and a lot of the funding was for high school programs. And even today, the majority of the funding is still for high school programs. But NASA did a study, a decade ago that has really driven the REC Foundation. And their data shows that we need to engage students in third, fourth grade in order to break stereotypes, right? So, the REC Foundation, along with VEX Robotics, have really focused on elementary programs. And actually, our programs are K through university. And interestingly enough, the very first program that a kindergartner, a first or second grader will get involved with is coding, to your point. It's almost like learning to read and write. It's become such a critical skill that everybody needs to learn it. Whether you become a professional coder or not, everybody needs to have an understanding of it. So we start our programs with coding K through 2. And then we have that first entry into building a robot starting in third and fourth grade. And there are other organizations that say that's too early. And fortunately, the REC Foundation and NASA disagree. And our VEX Go program and the VEX Go competition program are really allowing these students in elementary school to learn robotics. And there's a competition aspect of it, but it stays within the classroom. We're not trying to find a state champion or a world champion at that level. So you have a platform where you build a robot and it's theme based, whether it's water rescue or mission to Mars, there's a theme to it. And you build these robots and you drive them. And that at that level, we're hoping to really excite these students so that they'll continue with it. And so we really believe it's important to engage the students in elementary school. And I think we're starting to see that. We're seeing more and more students that started robotics in our elementary programs that are now competing at high school. And that's why I'm very optimistic that ultimately, even with our Girl Powered initiative, we'll get that 50-50 representation in high school because we're engaging them so much earlier.
I think that's one of those things that it's one of the reasons why organizations like REC are so important, especially at those younger stages, because a lot of folks tend to think that, because these students are younger and, that they don't have the capacity to either understand it or build it or do it. And then you have these types of programs that frankly celebrate the fact that, actually these students can do this if you just get out of their way and, give them a little direction and show them what they're doing. And yes, they're going to fail, but they're going to fail forward, hopefully. And like you said, build interest. And I think it's very unfortunate that, whether it's any STEM/STEAM program, but in a lot of ways, those students, those younger students, tend to kind of get written off as just being too young to understand because they're still learning. And crud, we're all learning, so so that's why I think it's programs like REC that really help push that message forward.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's a disservice to say that the younger students can't do things. Even within our own program. And now I'm talking like late elementary, early middle school. Mm-hmm. Sometimes these students develop these very advanced robots, and the first inclination is to say the parents must have done it for them. And honestly, sometimes we do have too much parent involvement. We're a student-centered organization. We want the students to do the work, and sometimes the parents get a little more excited. But in a lot of cases, when you really talk to the students, they've had these incredible visions and these brainstorming sessions, and they had these ideas, and these students can program at an advanced level, and they can build at an advanced level. It's the dexterity of their fingers that hold them back. It's not the knowledge, really. And so we really believe in empowering the students. People ask, what's different with the REC Foundation programs versus other robotics programs out there? And the number one thing is we are student-centered. It's part of our core philosophy is that the students will do the work, and the coaches, whether they're parent coaches or educators, they're there to guide and facilitate. And so we see students in elementary school, middle school, high school able to do these incredible tasks of engineering and programming because they have the opportunity. There's something to be said for inspiration and showing them, but also having them do it and gaining that confidence, that's probably even more important. And, probably the biggest thing we have to do is to remind the parents to step back. I coached soccer for 7 years. I coached 2 of my daughters in soccer, and I never got bothered by the parents, right? Because most of them had never played soccer, and they let me do my thing. I coached softball for 2 years, and it was an entirely different experience because a lot of people have grown up playing. A lot of the parents have played baseball, and the moms have played softball, so they had all kinds of suggestions. And it wasn't a great experience. And so it's like that with robotics. We appreciate the parents, being enthusiastic, but winning a trophy in robotics in elementary school does not assure that you're going to get accepted to MIT.
Right.
I have to remind parents that all the time. This is about teaching the tech skills, but more importantly, it used to be called the soft skills. We're kind of saying the workforce development schools of problem solving and teamwork and communication. That's what our programs are doing. We're not trying to make sure that your student has a great resume to get accepted at Cal Berkeley. That will come. We just want to make sure that the students have the skills to be able to participate in the growing tech workforce.
That was going to lead into, I look at this experience along the lines of music and band and choir and extracurricular sports activities and the arts, drama. This is one of those things where if you want to speak to, I know you did a presentation at VEX Conference, benefits of VEX Robotics competitions for students. That competition area is in prepping for that and learning and building is not necessarily all, just like you said, not about the robotics 100%. There is that growing and continuing education in all fields. It's like all the kids who are in band, but they go on to college and they might play in a band, but they're going to be doctors and lawyers and engineers. Talk about the importance you see of being in something like this, because I think there are a lot of kids we miss out in those other areas that this is a whole new area that they can be a part of, learn those leadership skills, learn to be team players, and moving forward in whatever field they choose to promote themselves in the future.
You make a fantastic point. I mean, really, it's so important that we want all our students have an opportunity to do this. But I tell people all the time, and I tell my staff all the time, that not everybody that tries this is going to love it. I talked about my two youngest daughters and their experiences in robotics. Well, I have an older daughter that never had an interest in being in robotics. And, she's brilliant, but her love was tennis and music and areas like that. But I think it's important to expose all of our students to this because it's going to become such a part of our workforce and our culture, right? So even if you don't really like it, you can say, hey, at least I did robotics in the classroom for a year, or I was on a competition team for 1 year, and I have an appreciation for it. Or more importantly, you can evolve a different skill set. Like you said, my youngest daughter, who ended up being robotics longer than any of my children because she did it in middle school, high school, and she did it at the university level. She wasn't a great roboticist, but she was really good at presentations. She was really good at leadership, and those skills have really helped her in her career now. And I think all students, whether they're going to be an engineer or a scientist, or whether they're going to work in retail, or they're going to go into medicine or music, having exposure to robotics is really, really important. And that's one thing I like about what your message is the EduTech guys, is that your message isn't just, students have to do it to get tech degrees. It's also about exposure and making sure that they do it so they can speak the language. Everybody needs access to robotics, whether that's what they're going to pursue or not. Just like we give everybody access to basketball, right? Very few people play in the NBA. Very few people play for their high school team. But all of us learn to dribble a basketball in gym class. And that's what my vision on the education side is, that every student at least builds a robot as part of a science class or a tech class, so they have that experience.
Yeah.
That's interesting with the new keyword that everything we're talking, AI. And, 20 years ago, David and I were teaching workshops on how to ask Google the right question to get the right answer. And that's where we are. And robotics and coding bring us into that, if this, then that. That's the beautiful part, is they're learning a higher level of thinking. And that's one reason they should all experience it, is to see it happen, not just in the text, because that's what AI is now. If I write this correctly, I'm going to get the right response out from the debug. But now, if you're in robotics or you're flying a drone, which I'm leading into that one,
I was wondering when we were going to get to the drones, man. I'm chomping at the bit.
I know, So, but to me, that's everyone needs to get a handle on that, because they'll find a reason that it will be an integral part of their life, and a story they'll tell 30 years down the road of, in high school, in college, in middle school, we did this with drones, and I still use it today when we go on our fishing trip to the White River, and I take my drone and do this, and that's how this happens. And it seems inconsequential to some people that listen to it until you actually put your hands on it. And then everyone that experiences it, I always think about going to the VEX Robotics booth at either FETC or ISTE or whatever, and everyone goes by and goes, oh, wow, I didn't realize this is what it was. But so getting to that, you're probably thinking, where's he going with this? Well, that's I wanted to hear here on what you're saying about, that's that part of it they get to be a part of. But having said that, so let's get into drones here, because I know that's something that you guys have gotten into now, robotics first and drones. my question is, so kids are learning to fly them. You can get licenses to fly. You can learn how to fly them. There's competitions. And I've seen these videos of drones going from 0 to 200 miles an hour in like 3 seconds, which is amazing. But are they building them yet? That's the question. Are they learning to code for them so they can, fly routes and check the fencing perimeter of a cattle rancher's farm, things like that?
Yeah, and we first got into drones 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a partner of ours had a small little drone competition, and they asked if we could be involved. And after seeing that competition, I said, this is, I asked with my staff and the board, I said, I think this is something that we should jump into, because when you look at the REC Foundation and VEX Robotics is preparing students for the workforce, drones is very applicable. And now I think with the military applications, everybody understands that side. But my goodness, they've been using drones to inspect agriculture and oil wells for a couple decades now. That was some of the first applications. So piloting a drone is a real job skill now. But besides that, it was also, there are students that really love gaming and what we call esports, right? And so how do we get those students to branch out a little bit more than esports? Well, I think flying a drone is that bridge between esports and a traditional STEM program. And we've had a lot of students since we started our program that joined just to fly the drone. But our program isn't drones racing. There's nothing wrong with drones racing who has a stated objective of drone piloting. Ours is a task-based drone program. And so there is a piloting aspect, and the students can earn their drones pilot license, but it is task-based, and it's, picking stuff up and moving things, and that's the goal. Well, what happens, a lot of these students now have joined our drones programs, and they want their drone to operate a little bit better. So what do? They get out their laptop or their tablet, and they start programming or coding. And now all of a sudden they're becoming coders, and they're learning that skill, and they start logging their flight log, which is basically the design notebook, but for drones we call it the flight log, right? And they start doing autonomous programming, because like our VEX Robotics competition, there's 3 aspects of our drones program. That's the competition piece, but there's also autonomous programming, and then the flying skills. So the students now are getting engaged more and more. And one of my favorite statistics, and when you're in this industry, there's a lot of statistics.
I bet.
One of my very favorite statistics is 78% of the students that are participating in the REC Foundation aerial drones competition are not doing a mobile robotics competition. So they're not doing VEX Robotics or any of the other mobile robotics competitions. But that doesn't actually answer your question. You wanted to know if the students are building a drone.
Yeah.
So at the most basic level, it's pull a drone out of the box, do a couple of attachments, and fly, and learn to fly, and then learn to program. But we also offer more advanced programs where the students do more. But those are very, very difficult. The last 3 years, we did the Bell aerial drones competition, and that was very complex. It included even soldering and build and 3D printing and stuff like that.
Nice.
Those are your students that are really wanting to do this for a career. It's a very, very challenging competition. So, and then there's a mid-level, VEX has announced their drone, the VEX Air, and that will be between our entry-level program, the aerial drones competition, which is, mostly flying and coding, and then the Bell competition, which is very high-end, and that'll fall in the middle. So I think, the idea is to get students engaged, and once they're engaged, they'll find the level that they want, whether it's completely building a drone, or whether it's doing more advanced tasks, or it's perfecting their piloting and programming skills.
That's really exciting. The idea that they're you have a program already where they're building it, they're soldering, they're working on that. That's, to me, that takes us back to the 70s, 80s where I was a kid, and I took apart every radio I could get my hands on, things along that line. And we didn't have that anywhere in the school system. We had shop class, so we didn't do a lot of soldering in shop class.
Well, and I think one of the key takeaways from what you just said was the fact that, you provide these different arenas, and I don't mean competition arenas. I mean, these venues, and these different means for students to get involved in various programs. And I love what you said about that. The students come in and then they will find their place. They will guide themselves to the quote highest level that they wish to take whatever it is they're doing, whether it's coding robotics, building the robots, whether it's, coding the drones, building the drones, wherever they want to be is where they get to go.
Oh, yeah.
And that is such a unique experience. And I think it's very cool those are the kinds of opportunities that REC is providing to the students who are involved in your programs.
Yeah. Essential
Thank
skills.
you for that, because I do think that the REC Foundation is different than other programs out there. When the REC Foundation started, back in 2010, because we're going to be celebrating our 15th year, it was all about the VEX Robotics competition, which is still a great competition. I mean, it's the largest robotics competition in the world now. People don't realize that.
Yeah.
We had over 40,000 registered teams compete last year. Wow. That's not teams that have been in the system for a few years. That's 40,000 teams that actually competed at least in one tournament, right?
Yeah.
And that continues to grow every year, and it's an incredible program. But the REC Foundation didn't want to just be one program. We wanted to provide different paths for different students. I mean, even our industry certifications, we're certified now, are approved in 15 states. We'll have over 20,000 students will take the industry certification exam this year, whether it's our pre-engineering or our robotics. But again, those are different programs for different students, and we didn't want to be narrow focused. We wanted to provide different pathways for different people.
So, Dan, future projects, big events that you guys are coming up with. You've hinted and talked about a few already, but something really big, 15th year anniversary. I figure you guys are going to bring out some, all the fireworks and the big stops, and looking at the videos and the pictures from Dallas this last competition. Wow, just wow. You guys make it such a worldwide event for all the kids and for all the sponsors, and especially the parents too. That's really, really cool. But so let's talk about big projects, big events coming up really soon for REC.
Well, we just completed the 2024 VEX Robotics World Championship in Dallas, and that is our largest event. It's the largest robotics competition in the world. The REC Foundation puts on that event, and I have 2 full-time staff just to plan that event, as well as many other staff members contribute to it as well. And, I think next year's VEX Robotics World Championship will even be better, because every year we learn from the previous year and try to do something even better. And that will be great. We launched what we call signature events for the VEX Robotics competition. It was based on one event that we went to in Ohio that was at a water park. And it just seemed that for our program to grow and be exciting, we wanted these theme events. And we call them signature events. And this year we have one on a cruise ship. Wow. We'll have an event at the end of the year that the competition will actually take place on a cruise ship. And we have them at Indy 500 and a lot of incredible places. And that's something that's unique to the REC Foundation. We get lots and lots of applications, but it gives the students, a place to go that's really, really exciting and compete against other teams. We're also an international program. We last year we hit 99. So 99 countries had RECF competitions. I'm sure we'll get well over to 100 next year. But I think that the cruise ship is pretty cool, the continuing growth of signature events. But then on our drone side, we started the first year, we had, about 400 teams, and we'll be well over 2,000 teams next year. And we're not having a world championship for that. We're doing a regional championship model. Matter of fact, our last regional championship for this season is this coming weekend, the last weekend of May.
Awesome.
But next year we'll have more regional championship events, and next year our drones program will go international for the first time. So that's exciting as well. And then, we do other things too. For example, the JROTC, we run their robotics championship, their national championship, and their national drones championships. And, already all 6 military participate, right? The Marines, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force. But I think you're going to see huge growth in JROTC. And then we also do TSA and Skills USA. So I think we'll see growth in that. But what I'm most excited about next year is I think that the next generation of the work cell product that's hitting the market this summer. And I think that's going to really revolutionize robotics CTE programs. And I think we're going to announce soon partnering with a couple of the large robotics companies where you start in an RECF program and it directly leads to the students learning how to use the big industrial robotics. So I think those are some things to look forward to next year. For us, it's just beginning. It's hard to believe it's been 15 years already, but we've had tremendous growth. But I think we're just at the beginning of our journey.
Yeah, I agree. Since you've begun, I've been in education 30 years, so what I've seen happen over the last 14 years leading into 15 has been just amazing. And I can't wait till the cruise actually has robots built by the students to put suntan lotion on me. I'm just saying.
please do not make that a competition. Nobody wants to see that.
That's what we said. We have a voice. We have faces for radio. That's right. But yeah, this is real exciting. Dan, we want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I appreciate that we have a shared vision of where we need to be. And again, as you said, it's actually recf.org. Once you go there, you can navigate. If you click the About, there's a map of the world, and you can click on any country, and that will tell you your RECF regional support manager that can get you started, whether it's in the VEX robotics program or a drones program or just general information.
Awesome.
So,
yeah. And we hopefully we'll see you at ISTE or FETC or TCEA or one of the conferences pretty soon. I'd like to get together
we're
and chat
always
some more.
at every one of those. Generally, VEX will have their booth, and then we get a quarter of it to demonstrate the competition programs. But another thing that you'll see next year is at least two of those conferences, our drones partner is also going to have a setup of the RECF aerial drones competition.
That'll be cool.
Nice.
You'll get double dose of the RECF.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Robotics and the drones. Yeah.
That's very exciting. Dan, thanks once again for coming on the show.
Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Hey, big thanks to Dan Mantz for coming on the show with Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. He's the CEO, and it's, as you can tell, very, very committed to what he does. Their heart is in it. He's in it to win it, and he knows his business. Yeah, really.
Yeah, and I think it's great that they are focusing on a multitude of approaches for getting the devices, the knowledge, the experience into the hands of students.
Oh yeah, and that's the key thing, and just growing and growing and growing. I mean, worldwide.
Yeah,
that's kind of neat to say worldwide like that. But hey, listen, we hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check us out on the web, edutechguys.com. You can catch us on all your favorite podcast providers and this episode and many more. So, hey, it's been a great show. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Jeff Madlock.
I'm David Henderson.
We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the EduTech Guys, edutechguys.com. This episode of EduTech Guys is sponsored by the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. It's a global nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing student engagement in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, and computer science by engaging students in hands-on curriculum-based robotics programs. Through comprehensive initiatives encompassing competitions, education, and workforce readiness, the Foundation empowers educators to inspire and equip students for success. The REC Foundation strives to create a future where every student designs and innovates as part of a team, overcomes failure, perseveres, and emerges confident in their ability to meet global challenges. Through sustainable, affordable, and accessible robotics programs, the REC Foundation is inspiring students one robot at a time. For more information, visit recf.org.